Evidence and efficacy of homeopathy. The very low concentration of homeopathic preparations, which often lack even a single molecule of the diluted substance, has been the basis of questions about the effects of the preparations since the 19th century. Modern advocates of homeopathy have proposed a concept of water memory, according to which water remembers the substances mixed in it and transmits the effect of those substances when consumed. This concept is inconsistent with the current understanding of matter, and water memory has never been demonstrated to exist in terms of any detectable effect, biological or otherwise. James, Randi, and the 1023 campaign groups have highlighted the lack of active ingredients in most homeopathic products by taking large overdoses. None of the hundreds of demonstrators in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the US were injured, and no one was cured of anything, either. Outside of the alternative medicine community, scientists have long considered homeopathy a sham, or a pseudoscience, and the mainstream medical community regards it as quackery. There is an overall absence of sound statistical evidence of therapeutic efficacy, which is consistent with the lack of any biologically plausible pharmacological agent or mechanism. Abstract concepts within theoretical physics have been invoked to suggest explanations of how or why preparations might work, including quantum entanglement, quantum nonlocality, the theory of relativity, and chaos theory. Contrariwise, quantum superposition has been invoked to explain why homeopathy does not work in double-blind trials. However, the explanations are offered by non-specialists within the field and often include speculations that are incorrect in their application of the concepts and not supported by actual experiments. At 255.6, several of the key concepts of homeopathy conflict with fundamental concepts of physics and chemistry. The use of quantum entanglement to explain homeopathy's purported effects is patent nonsense, as entanglement is a delicate state that rarely lasts longer than a fraction of a second. While entanglement may result in certain aspects of individual subatomic particles acquiring linked quantum states, this does not mean the particles will mirror or duplicate each other, nor cause health-improving transformations. Plausibility, efficacy, government-level reviews, publication bias, and other methodological problems, slums. Systematic reviews and meta-analyses of efficacy, statements by major medical organizations. Health organizations such as the UK National Health Service, the American Medical Association, the FACEB, and the National Health and Medical Research Council of Australia have issued statements of their conclusion that there is no good quality evidence that homeopathy is effective as a treatment for any health condition. In 2009, World Health Organization official Mario Ravigliani criticized the use of homeopathy to treat tuberculosis. Similarly, another WHO spokesperson argued there was no evidence homeopathy would be an effective treatment for diarrhea. They warned against the use of homeopathy for serious conditions such as depression, HIV, and malaria. The American College of Medical Toxicology and the American Academy of Clinical Toxicology recommend that no one use homeopathic treatment for disease or as a preventive health measure. These organizations report that no evidence exists that homeopathic treatment is effective, but that there is evidence that using these treatments produces harm and can bring indirect health risks by delaying conventional treatment. Explanations of perceived effects. Science offers a variety of explanations for how homeopathy may appear to cure diseases or alleviate symptoms even though the preparations themselves are inert. 167. The placebo effect. The intensive consultation process and expectations for the homeopathic preparations may cause the effect. Therapeutic effect of the consultation. The care, concern, and reassurance a patient experiences when opening up to a compassionate caregiver can have a positive effect on the patient's well-being. Unassisted natural healing time and the body's ability to heal without assistance can eliminate many diseases of their own accord. Unrecognized treatments and unrelated food, exercise, environmental agent, or treatment for a different ailment may have occurred. Regression towards the mean, since many diseases or conditions are cyclical. Symptoms vary over time, and patients tend to seek care when discomfort is greatest. They may feel better anyway, but because of the timing of the visit to the homeopath, they attribute improvement to the preparation taken. Non-homeopathic treatment patients may also receive standard medical care at the same time as homeopathic treatment, and the former is responsible for improvement. Cessation of unpleasant treatment. Often homeopaths recommend patients stop getting medical treatment such as surgery or drugs, which can cause unpleasant side effects. Improvements are attributed to homeopathy when the actual cause is the cessation of the treatment causing side effects in the first place, but the underlying disease remains untreated and still dangerous to the patient. Purported effects in other biological systems. While some articles have suggested that homeopathic solutions of high dilution can have statistically significant effects on organic processes including the growth of grain, histamine release by leukocytes, and enzyme reactions, such evidence is disputed since attempts to replicate them have failed. A 2007 systematic review of high dilution experiments found that none of the experiments with positive results could be reproduced by all investigators. In 1987, French immunologist Jacques Benveniste submitted a paper to the journal Nature while working at INSERM. The paper purported to have discovered that basophils, a type of white blood cell, released histamine when exposed to a homeopathic dilution of anti-immunoglobulin E antibody. The journal editors, skeptical of the results, requested that the study be replicated in a separate laboratory. Upon replication in 4 separate laboratories, the study was published. Still skeptical of the findings, Nature assembled an independent investigative team to determine the accuracy of the research, consisting of Nature editor and physicist Sir John Maddox, American scientific fraud investigator, and chemist Walter Stewart, and skeptic James Randi. After investigating the findings and methodology of the experiment, the team found that the experiments were statistically ill-controlled. Interpretation has been clouded by the exclusion of measurements in conflict with the claim, and concluded, "We believe that experimental data have been uncritically assessed and their imperfections inadequately reported." James Randi stated that he doubted that there had been any conscious fraud, but that the researchers had allowed wishful thinking to influence their interpretation of the data. In 2001 and 2004, Madeline Innes published a number of studies that reported that homeopathic dilutions of histamine. In response to the first of these studies, Horizon aired a program in which British scientists attempted to replicate Innes' results. They were unable to do so. Ethics and safety. The provision of homeopathic preparations has been described as unethical. Michael Baum, Professor Emeritus of Surgery and visiting Professor of Medical Humanities at University College London UCL, has described homeopathy as a cruel deception. Edzard Ernst, the first professor of complementary medicine in the United Kingdom and a former homeopathic practitioner, has expressed his concerns about pharmacists who violate their ethical code by failing to provide customers with necessary and relevant information about the true nature of the homeopathic products they advertise and sell. My plea is simply for honesty. Let people buy what they want, but tell them the truth about what they are buying. These treatments are biologically implausible, and the clinical tests have shown they don't do anything at all in human beings. The argument that this information is not relevant or important for customers is quite simply ridiculous. Patients. In 2013, the UK Advertising Standards Authority concluded that the Society of Homeopaths were targeting vulnerable ill people and discouraging the use of essential medical treatment while making misleading claim. Kaline. Pandemine. In 2015, the Federal Court of Australia imposed penalties on a homeopathic company, Homeopathy Plus Limited, and its director for making false or misleading statements about the efficacy of the whooping cough vaccine and homeopathic remedies as an alternative to the whooping cough vaccine, in breach of the Australian consumer law. Adverse effects. Defects. Some homeopathic preparations involve poisons such as belladonna, arsenic, and poison ivy, which are highly diluted in the homeopathic preparation. In rare cases, the original ingredients are present at detectable levels. This may be due to improper preparation or intentional low dilution. Serious adverse effects such as seizures and death have been reported or associated with some homeopathic preparations. On September 30, 2016, the FDA issued a safety alert to consumers warning against the use of homeopathic teething gels and tablets following reports of adverse events after their use. The agency recommended that parents discard these products and seek advice from their healthcare professional for safe alternatives to homeopathy for teething. The pharmacy CVS announced also on September 30 that it was voluntarily withdrawing the products from sale, and on October 11, Highlands, the manufacturer announced that it was discontinuing their teething medicine in the United States, though the products remain on sale. On October 12, BuzzFeed reported that the regulator had examined more than 400 reports of seizures, fever, and vomiting, as well as 10 deaths over a 6-year period. The investigation, including analyses of the products, is still ongoing, and the FDA does not know yet if the deaths and illnesses were caused by the products. However, a previous FDA investigation in 2010, following adverse effects reported then, found that these same products were improperly diluted and contained unsafe levels of belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade, and that the reports of serious adverse events in children using this product were consistent with belladonna toxicity. Instances of arsenic poisoning have occurred after use of arsenic containing homeopathic preparations. Zicam Cold Remedy Nasal Gel, which contains 2x1 zinc gluconate, reportedly caused a small percentage of users to lose their sense of smell. 340 cases were settled out of court in 2006 for $12 million. In 2009, the FDA advised consumers to stop using 3 discontinued cold remedy Zicam products because it could cause permanent damage to users' sense of smell. Zicam was launched without a new drug application (NDA) under a provision in the FDA compliance policy guide called Conditions Under Which Homeopathic Drugs May Be Marketed, CPG 7132.15, but the FDA warned Matrix Initiatives, its manufacturer, via warning letter that this policy does not apply. A 2000 review by homeopaths reported that homeopathic preparations are unlikely to provoke severe adverse reactions. In 2012, a systematic review evaluating evidence of homeopathy's possible adverse effects concluded that homeopathy has the potential to harm patients and consumers in both direct and indirect ways. One of the reviewers, Edzard Ernst, supplemented the article on his blog, writing, "I have said it often, and I say it again, if used as an alternative to an effective cure, even the most harmless treatment can become life-threatening." A 2016 systematic review and meta-analysis found that, in homeopathic clinical trials, adverse effects were reported among the patients who received homeopathy about as often as they were reported among patients who received placebo or conventional medicine. Lack of efficacy. The lack of convincing scientific evidence supporting its efficacy and its use of preparations without active ingredients have led to characterizations as pseudoscience and quackery, or, in the words of a 1998 medical review, placebo therapy at best and quackery at worst. The Russian Academy of Sciences considers homeopathy a dangerous pseudoscience that does not work, and urges people to treat homeopathy on a par with magic. The Chief Medical Officer for England, Dame Sally Davies, has stated that homeopathic preparations are rubbish and do not serve as anything more than placebos. Jack Killen, Acting Deputy Director of the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, says homeopathy goes beyond current understanding of chemistry and physics. He adds, there is, to my knowledge, no condition for which homeopathy has been proven to be an effective treatment. Ben Goldacker says that homeopaths who misrepresent scientific evidence to a scientifically illiterate public have walled themselves off from academic medicine, and critique has been all too often met with avoidance rather than argument. Homeopaths often prefer to ignore meta-analyses in favor of cherry-picked positive results, such as by promoting a particular observational study, one which Goldacker describes as little more than a customer satisfaction survey, as if it were more informative than a series of randomized controlled trials. Referring specifically to homeopathy, the British House of Commons Science and Technology Committee has stated, in our view, the systematic reviews and meta-analyses conclusively demonstrate that homeopathic products perform no better than placebos. The government shares our interpretation of the evidence. In the committee's view, homeopathy is a placebo treatment and the government should have a policy on prescribing placebos. The government is reluctant to address the appropriateness and ethics of prescribing placebos to patients, which usually relies on some degree of patient deception. Prescribing of placebos is not consistent with an informed patient choice, which the government claims is very important as it means patients do not have all the information needed to make choice meaningful. Beyond ethical issues and the integrity of the doctor-patient relationship, prescribing pure placebos is bad medicine. Their effect is unreliable and unpredictable and cannot form the sole basis of any treatment on the NHS. The National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine of the United States National Institutes of Health states, homeopathy is a controversial topic in complementary medicine research. A number of the key concepts of homeopathy are not consistent with fundamental concepts of chemistry and physics. For example, it is not possible to explain in scientific terms how a preparation containing little or no active ingredient can have any effect. This, in turn, creates major challenges to the rigorous clinical investigation of homeopathic preparations. For example, one cannot confirm that an extremely dilute preparation contains what is listed on the label or develop objective measures that show effects of extremely dilute preparations in the human body. Ben Goldacker noted that in the early days of homeopathy, when medicine was dogmatic and frequently worse than doing nothing, homeopathy at least failed to make matters worse. During the 19th century cholera epidemic, death rates at the London Homeopathic Hospital were 3 times lower than at the Middlesex Hospital. Homeopathic sugar pills won't do anything against cholera, of course, but the reason for homeopathy's success in this epidemic is even more interesting than the placebo effect. At the time, nobody could treat cholera. So, while hideous medical treatments such as bloodletting were actively harmful, the homeopath's treatments at least did nothing either way. In lieu of standard medical treatment, on clinical grounds, patients who choose to use homeopathy in preference to normal medicine risk missing timely diagnosis and effective treatment, thereby worsening the outcomes of serious conditions. Critics of homeopathy have cited individual cases of patients of homeopathy failing to receive proper treatment for diseases that could have been easily diagnosed and managed with conventional medicine, and who have died as a road, and the marketing practice of criticizing and downplaying the effectiveness of mainstream medicine. Homeopaths claim that use of conventional medicines will push the disease deeper and cause more serious conditions, a process referred to as suppression. Some homeopaths, particularly those who are non-physicians, advise their patients against immunization. Some homeopaths suggest that vaccines be replaced with homeopathic nosodes, created from biological materials such as pus, diseased tissue, bacilli from sputum, or in the case of bowel nosodes, feces. While Hahnemann was opposed to such preparations, modern homeopaths often use them, although there is no evidence to indicate they have any beneficial effects. Cases of homeopaths advising against the use of anti-malarial drugs have been identified. This puts visitors to the tropics who take this advice in severe danger, since homeopathic preparations are completely ineffective against the malaria parasite. Also, in one case in 2004, a homeopath instructed one of her patients to stop taking conventional medication for a heart condition, advising her on June 22, 2004 to stop all medications including homeopathic, advising her on or around August 20 that she no longer needed to take her heart medication, and adding, the patient was admitted to hospital the next day and died 8 days later, the final diagnosis being acute heart failure due to treatment discontinuation. In 1978, Anthony Campbell, then a consultant physician at the Royal London Homeopathic Hospital, criticized statements by George Vithalkas claiming that syphilis, when treated with antibiotics, would develop into secondary and tertiary syphilis with involvement of the central nervous system, saying that the unfortunate layman might well be misled by Vithalkas' rhetoric. Vithalkas' claims echo the idea that treating a disease with external medication used to treat the symptoms would only drive it deeper into the body and conflict with scientific studies, which indicate that penicillin treatment produces a complete cure of syphilis in more than 90% of cases. A 2006 review by W. Stephen Prey of the College of Pharmacy at Southwestern Oklahoma State University recommends that pharmacy colleges include a required course in unproven medications and therapies, that ethical dilemmas inherent in recommending products lacking proven safety and efficacy data be discussed, and that students, in an article entitled "Should We Maintain an Open Mind About Homeopathy?" published in the American Journal of Medicine, Michael Baum and Edzard Ernst, writing to other physicians, wrote that homeopathy is among the worst examples of faith-based medicine. These axioms of homeopathy are not only out of line with scientific facts but also directly opposed to them. In 2013, Mark Walport, the UK government chief scientific advisor and head of the Government Office for Science, had this to say: "My view scientifically is absolutely clear. Homeopathy is nonsense. It is non-science. My advice to ministers is clear, that there is no science in homeopathy. The most it can have is a placebo effect." His predecessor, John Beddington, referring to his views on homeopathy being fundamentally ignored by the government, said, "The only one view being ignored I could think of was homeopathy, which is mad. It has no underpinning of scientific basis. In fact, all the science points to the fact that it is not at all sensible. The clear evidence is saying this equals references equals